Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. We're going to look at something a little different today. I know we've been doing a lot of Mego episodes, and there's more Mego to come. I've got boxes and boxes of Mego here. So don't worry, we're going to have more Mego. If you like Mego, you're in luck. If you don't like Mego, well, then you'll like this episode, because this is about as far from Mego as we can get. I don't want this to turn into the Mego channel. We're not just here for Mego. So I want to look at something different today, something very different. Take a little break from the 8-inch monsters and look at something vintage, something that connects to my childhood, and that's a little off the beaten path. Now, I've shown you this before. You probably, well, if you watch this channel regularly, you've seen this. I think I've shown this a couple times. This is an Avon Dinosaur. It is obviously a Brontosaurus. An Avon Brontosaurus bubble bath container. Now, I'm not sure what year this was made in. Let me take a look here. See if it says. I know it's mid-1970s. Well, we'll find out later. It doesn't have the year on it. But hopefully we'll find out for sure in a second, but I'm thinking like 1975 or 6 or something like that, but we'll find out for sure. But this is my childhood toy. So that is my childhood Brontosaurus. And his head comes off, his neck, and you see he's got a cap there. And this part is kind of, well, he's stiff now because he's old, but it's kind of, you can squeeze it, it's more flexible, whereas this is like blow mold. That's more rigid. Yeah, you can still squeeze it, but it's not flexible. It's not rubbery. This is like a vinyl kind of material, or if it's a PVC, but it's like a soft PVC, whereas this is a rigid kind of blow mold plastic. And you see he's got some of his environment there. He's got prehistoric leaves. He's marching through the jungle, the prehistoric jungle. And on the bottom, here's his information on the bottom. And I couldn't find a date there. But it's a bubble bath container. Bubble bath for children. Pour 1 tablespoon under running water. Handle under adult supervision. Ingredients for external use only, so don't drink it. Important. Container should not be used as a toy until empty and clean. 10 fluid ounces. Avon Products Incorporated, New York, New York. 10019. So, there's my childhood Brontosaurus. Now this is an Avon Triceratops. And this is not from my childhood. This is something I bought in recent years. He's a grumpy looking Triceratops. Once again, he's got the leaves. His environment is part of the toy. It's got a lot of texture. It's actually a very detailed figure. Much more detailed than most dinosaur toys, like most dinosaur action figures of the time. And his head comes off. All of these, their heads come off, and he's got the cap. Bacteria, I think. That doesn't look very healthy in there. But that's what the cap looks like, what the opening looks like. So you'd squeeze that out into the bath under the running water. Have a little bubble bath. Let's see if this one's more flexible than the Brontosaurus. Yeah, look at, see, it's very, see that? It's very, very flexible. There you go. You can see that. Very flexible. In a way, he's kind of posable because you can move his head like that. So there's actually some posability there. He's cute. They're all cute. And there's also a Tranosaurus, which we'll show in a second. And just looking at this from, I was looking at it on camera, looking at it on the naked eye, it has even more detail. I mean, he's got those beady little eyes and all those folds of skin and little bumps and all that texture. I mean, they really did a fantastic job on these things. Like I said, we'll show you Tyrannosaurus in a few minutes. Now, I don't show a lot of dinosaur stuff on here. I do kind of think dinosaurs and monsters kind of go together. So I don't think it's inconsistent to show dinosaurs on a monster program. I mean, dinosaurs are part of King Kong, they're part of Godzilla, Ray Harryhausen films, Hammer films. There's several Hammered prehistoric movies. Stuff like Gorgo and other kinds of giant monster movies. So dinosaurs and monsters go together. That said, there are dinosaur collectors that are not interested in monsters, but are really heavily into dinosaurs. And of course, they have huge collections of just shelves full of all kinds of dinosaur stuff. And I'm not a dinosaur collector per se. I have some dinosaur stuff, but I'm not especially a dinosaur collector. But these hold a special place in my heart, and I'll tell you why. As I said, these are Avon products. They're bubble bath containers. And if you don't know what Avon is, because it's not really a current thing. It's still around, but it's not a current thing. But I can imagine, some younger people might not really know what Avon is or what it was. They might know it as a brand name, but not really understand what it was back in the day, what it was for 100 years. It had a very different mystique than it does today. So if you've never heard of the term Avon lady, well, you're probably young, because if you're certainly my age or older, the Avon lady was as common as the mailman or the milkman. That's something we don't have anymore. The milkman? Who has milkmen now? Well, when I was a kid, there were still milkmen. I remember my grandparents, there were times where a milkman would come when I was with my grandparents and put milk down on the porch. But there are all kinds of people, kind of like these Mr. Rogers characters, these people in your neighborhood that would come to your house. And one of them was the Avon lady. So let me tell you a little bit about Avon. What is Avon? Avon was founded in 1886 by David McConnell in New York. And he began by selling products himself, but very soon after starting the company, he started hiring women as his sales representatives. And women at the time didn't even have the right to vote. So it was very unusual at the time. It was really pushing things forward in a way to have a sales force of women. That was not normal back then. And Avon sold beauty products. And it was mostly aimed at women. It was aimed at a middle-class, suburban female clientele. It was aimed at housewives. It was a very different world back then. And the heyday of Avon really was in the mid-20th century. So the Avon lady, these sales reps, became an iconic part of Americana for over 100 years. Avon ladies would purchase Avon products, these beauty products, from the company at a discount, and then they would sell them to their clientele at list prices. And the Avon lady would have a catalog that she would bring to your house, and she would have products, like sales samples to show you. And she would sell these beauty products to, as I said, mostly suburban housewives in their home. Now, Avon as a company, it still exists, but it's not what it used to be. Now it's split into two companies. The international division is owned by a Brazilian company, and the U.S. division, the one that operates in the U.S., is owned by a South Korean company. And Avon today really, there are still Avon sales representatives, male and female, but the Avon lady, like it was 50 years ago, isn't really a thing anymore. Not that there aren't women selling Avon products, but the woman who had like the Avon suit and would come to your door and come to your house and sit down and have a little Avon presentation, that's been de-emphasized now. Now the company is focusing on online sales, doing a lot of like Amazon, like everything else these days, a lot of selling online, and focusing on higher end products instead of that middle class suburban audience. They're aiming for a higher end clientele with more expensive products. So the Avon that I grew up with and that people older than me grew up with, it doesn't really exist. Even though the company, well, it's broken in two now. The name exists, the brand exists, there's still Avon, there's still people who sell Avon, but it's not like it was a generation ago. So when I was a kid, and people older than me were kids, some decades ago, every neighborhood had an Avon lady, at least one, maybe more than one. And she would build up a clientele. However, she would meet people, maybe people on your block, people in your neighborhood, maybe people whose kids went to the same school, and so you'd meet at school events or through church or at work or whatever. And she'd schedule appointments and go to the people's house. And it was a kind of a catchphrase. It's a ding dong. I think in commercials they use this ding dong. That was like a trade, not trademark, but maybe it was a trademark, but that was how did I put it? That was like the hook that you knew that the Avon lady went ding dong. So she'd ring your doorbell and come into the house and have her products, her samples, and have her catalogs, and she'd sit there and talk and maybe have coffee or eat a little bit. And the client, usually a housewife, would look at the catalog, order some stuff, look at the products, and you could buy stuff right then and there directly, or you could order it from the catalog, and then she'd come bring it to your house when the products came in. Or if she already had the stuff in hand, she could, just go to her home and come back next week with your stuff. I've never been an Avon lady, so I'm just kind of, this is my memory of how it worked as a kid, because my mother liked the Avon lady, as all suburban moms at that time liked the Avon lady. That was part of social life. The husband would be at work all day, and the mom would be at home, and that was just kind of part of her, how she had a social life. Is one of the ways she had a social life was having the Avon lady come pay a visit. And that was also the age of Tupperware parties. That's something, it's hard to even wrap your head around it now, but there were Tupperware parties where you have a sales rep for Tupperware, kind of like the Avon lady, only they would have they would invite all their friends and have a big demonstration of Tupperware, these plastic containers and dishes and things. And everyone would be excited about the Tupperware, and it was a Tupperware party. I think I was at one Tupperware party that my mom dragged me to. I just have a vague memory of attending a Tupperware party. It's just so hard to imagine anyone today being into that. But, people watching right now, I could have people who hold Tupperware parties or go to Tupperware parties could be watching right now saying, well, what's wrong with the Tupperware party? Nothing's wrong with it. It's just, you would have to agree. Today, most people don't get excited about Tupperware parties or someone going door to door selling beauty products. But the Avon lady didn't really go door to door. It was an appointment. She had built clientele. She didn't just show up on your door. She made an appointment and came to your house at a certain time. So that was part of suburban life, in my case in the 1970s, but it was all through the 20th century. Like I said, this started in 1886. So it had been going on a long time before I experienced it. But that was just part of normal life growing up in the 70s, which is when I was a kid. Your mom would have the Avon lady come over, or maybe your mom was an Avon lady, or you'd have Tupperware parties at your house or at someone else's house. There was all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, this is the age of lemon lime Jello desserts with fruit and stuff stuck in it, or I don't know, Vienna sausages and Jello, or weird stuff like that, or Spam dishes, people making fancy dishes out of Spam, and an avocado decor everywhere, avocado colored kitchens. That was the world I grew up in. That was the 1970s. Bell bottoms and frizzy hair, and shirts open for the men, and porn star mustaches. So that was the 70s. That was my 70s. And so the Avon lady was a big part of that suburban life, that middle class suburban life. It was still around the 80s, like what you see in Stranger Things, or old movies like E.T., or The Goonies. That was my life. Even though those are 80s still, it's just a few years later. Still, basically, that was the life I had. E.T., Goonies, Stranger Things, Stephen King's It, although that takes place in the 60s, the book, but like the modern film, I think, takes place in the 80s. So that was the world I grew up in. Now, Avon sold a bunch of bubble bath containers. All kinds of characters and animals and all kinds of stuff. And among them were 3 dinosaurs. Tyrannosaurus, Brontosaurus, Triceratops. And as a kid, I had 2 Brontosauruses. This is my second one. The first one I had was somehow lost in a rainstorm. So I had the Brontosaurus outside, and somehow it got left outside. I don't know why. And then there was a big storm, and the storm washed it away. I mean, this sounds like it must be like a Wizard of Oz level storm event, but that's what happened. There used to be, in our backyard, the ground kind of, it sloped down, and there was a kind of a channel in the middle, the way the shape of the yard was, and water would drain down into that depression and make a little stream running across the yard when there was a really bad, heavy rainstorm. And so it's certainly conceivable that a toy might have washed away. Although to my adult brain, I have to wonder what really happened. As a kid, it made perfect sense that there was a bad storm and the Brontosaurus washed away. Now thinking about it, it's like, that sounds kind of far-fetched. It washed away? Really? This washed away? I don't know. But the point is, it was no more. My Brontosaurus was gone. And I really liked my Brontosaurus. I played, well, he was just like a friendly Brontosaurus doing his thing, living his life. But I had all the Aurora dinosaur model kits that, of course, I played with as toys. And I had rubber dinosaurs and whatever other dinosaur toys there were back then. And I would play like King Kong. Eventually, I had the stuffed King Kong that I believe was made by Mego, but it's a stuffed toy. So I had that. That was my main King Kong. And I had the big Aurora Tyrannosaurus, the red one. I still have him. He's not in very good shape, but I still have him. And I still have my Kong. And they would kind of rule the prehistoric world, but then there'd be little guys like this doing their thing, munching on trees and stuff. And in the backyard, there'd be different environments where you might have different dinosaurs stationed. And then the big Tranosaurus would come, and then King Kong would come, and we'd have little wars in the lost world. Sometimes you'd have adventure people visiting this prehistoric planet and getting into all kinds of misadventures. And other times the Brontosaurus would be the Loch Ness Monster. And so you have adventure people in a boat. And I still have the adventure people. I still have the boat. I still have all of that. I could reenact it right now if I brought all that stuff out. But you have adventure people in a boat, and this would be Nessie, and Nessie would just kind of, surface and be sighted, and then go back down to the water. Nessie would never really attack them. But if it was King Kong, then this would be the Brontosaurus that overturns the raft in King Kong. It's a little small for an adventure person. The Brontosaurus in King Kong would be much bigger, but this is what I had. This is the only Brontosaurus I had, the only long-necked dinosaur toy that I had. So it was the stand. Anything that had a long neck, this was it. Brontosaurus, Plesiosaurus, Loch Ness Monster, whatever I needed, this was it. So I actually played with this toy a lot, a whole lot. It was one of my favorite toys, but it got washed away. That's the story anyway. Okay, so then the Avon lady comes over, as she often did when I was a kid, and I remember so vividly sitting at the kitchen table, and the Avon lady is across the table, and I don't know if I'm in my mom's lap or if my mom is next to me, but one of the either my mom's next to me or I'm in her lap, and we're looking at Avon beauty products, beauty and bath kind of stuff, and we got some samples out, and we got the catalog or the brochure that has the pictures of what's available. And on one page it shows the dinosaurs, including the Brontosaurus. I remember very vividly opening that page and seeing the Brontosaurus on the picture on the page, and then I just started crying, just thinking of my lost Brontosaurus out there somewhere, alone, washed away, never to see him again. I was just, and my mother didn't know why I was crying. She was like, "Oh, why are you crying? What's going on?" And I remember the Avon lady, without saying a word, let's say this is the Avon catalog that I'm looking at, and the Avon lady just kind of nods and does that, just kind of taps the picture of the Brontosaurus in the catalog, just like that, because she knew that I had lost my Brontosaurus, because that had come up. So she knew I was crying over my lost Brontosaurus. And then my mom said something like, "Oh, is that why you're crying?" And she ordered another Brontosaurus. And then, several days later it came, and this is it. This is my second Brontosaurus. And I had all the same adventures with this Brontosaurus that I had with the first one. Much like my Ai creature, this is not my original childhood creature. This is my second one. The first one broke. His arm broke off. And then I got a second one. This is my second one. I didn't have the first one very long, though, so all my childhood adventures were with this one. The first creature I only had for a short time, and it broke pretty quickly. So my second one did not get washed away. It's still here today. So that's why I have a strong connection to these Avon dinosaurs. And let's finally take a look at what we have here. Here is, so I have two sets of these. My archival set is in plastic, so we won't be opening those up. But I will set them over here. Here is the non-archival one. This is the one I can open and fool around with and not worry about damaging it. So I'll show you this artwork a little more clearly in a minute. I want to see if there's a date on these. I thought I knew the date, but obviously I don't. No, I mean, it's interesting. It says Avon Products, New York, New York. Why is that interesting? Because it was founded in New York, and it's like 100 years later, it's still in New York. It never left New York, except now when it's South Korea and Brazil. No, there's no date. I thought I knew the date on these. I guess I don't. Huh. No, there's no date on the box. Well, I mean, they're like it's mid-70s. It's like 74, 5, 6. I'm going to say 76. I know that Mego Kong, Stuffed Kong, is 76. Pretty sure, because I think it came out when the Dino De Laurentiis movie came out. Even though the Stuffed Kong is RKO licensed, I think it came out when the remake came out. And I think I had that, I think, around the same time that I got the second Brontosaurus, but I'm not sure. But, you know, I'm in the right ballpark. Let's say 75-ish, give or take a year. So let's open this up. Wait a minute, there's more writing here. Oh, nothing interesting. So there's more writing in there, and there's the dinosaur in there. And they're all packaged with their heads detached like that. And there's an untouched, well, not quite untouched because it's empty, so it's not untouched. But there's another one. That was, they've gone stiff. That's not any more squeezable than my childhood one. Now the one, my archival one, this is full, so this is heavy. That has never been removed from the box. It's still full of bubble bath. It's never been used. Let's put this back. And some of these are difficult to get back in the... I've noticed they can be a pain to try to put back in the box. So maybe I should use discretion in taking these out, because trying to get them back in can be a pain. Okay, I think that's it. That's why this is the non-archival set that I can mess up if necessary. So let's look at this artwork, because I have a few things to say about the artwork. Look at that beautiful artwork. It is so evocative. I mean, it really puts you into that old style prehistoric aesthetic. I love old-fashioned prehistoric artwork, like the dinosaur artwork from the early 20th century, mid 20th century, back when Tranosaurus walked on two legs straight up. Well, I mean, today he still walks on two legs, but he was bipedal, walked with his head up high, dragged his tail behind him. That's not how he's depicted now. And look at, I was talking about the avocado kitchens. Look at this green. That's such a 70s green, 1970s green. And that font, very 70s. And don't forget that these are not like monster toys sold at Kresge. These are Avon products that the Avon lady is going to sell to your mom. So the whole aesthetic, it has to appeal to mom, to the suburban mom from the 70s. I just love all that green. Look at that green. Very, very 70s. Should I talk about this artwork now? No, let's, because I have some things to say about the source of the artwork, why it looks the way it does. Here's my archival my MIB Triceratops. And there, you know, he's unused. He's heavy. This is heavy. Take my word for it, it's heavy. Because it's full of bubble bath. Never been used. Here is the one we can screw around with. Now this one's also unused, even though the box is not mint. The box has some issues. But this one, the toy inside is full of bubble bath. It's full of bubble bath liquid, full of soap. Hear that? A little time capsule in there. So this probably has never been on this body. It could be like a little finger puppet. You can make a little... Look at the detail in that. So the Triceratops head is very rubbery, more so than the Brontosaurus. So maybe they were like that from day one. The Brontosaurus was stiffer, more rigid, and the Triceratops is more rubbery. And that makes sense because it's got horns. So they would be more safety conscious about the horns and not wanting kids to get hurt from these pointy horns. Whereas the Brontosaurus has that long, narrow neck that has to have stability and hold itself up. So a soft material might not have been good for that long, erect neck that might, you don't want that to sag or fall over or whatever. It's got to stay stable. Whereas Triceratops, you don't want horns poking kids, so it's softer. Lots of detail under the neck, just detail all over the place. These are very detailed toys, and these are toys. I consider these to be toys. Let's see, how does this fit back in here? Maybe I should not have taken this out. How in the heck do I get that back in? Maybe I don't get it back in. I don't know. Yikes. I think I could use up all... I could spend 20 minutes on this. Just, how do you get this back in? This might be educational in case you ever need to put one of these back in the package. You want to know how to do it. I don't know. I might have to look at the footage to see if that was in there. I give up. I don't want to mess it up. Okay, let's put him over here. We'll just put the we'll put the Triceratops head back on later, or put it back in the box later because I can't get it back in there. Okay, so here is finally, this is the Tranosaurus. This one is full. This is the minty box. Nice, fresh box. And here is our not so minty box. And this box is in the worst condition. Now this one's also still has the liquid in it, so it's, even though the box isn't great, the toy inside is unused, but the box is pretty rough. It's got staining where, now this one didn't leak, but apparently it was in a case, and one of the ones in the case did leak and messed up some of the other boxes, but the one I'm holding did not leak. But the box did suffer problems. Is there any date on this one? No, just like the other ones. No date. I didn't even think about checking on the date, like online, you know, because I thought it would be on the toys. I would just look at it, but nope, it's not on the toys. So did I do justice to the artwork on this before I go further with the Transforus? I don't know if I showed you this Triceratops box. Let's take a moment and look at that box. Because I think I skimmed over the box real fast, didn't really show you what that box looks like. And so it's like the imagery on the box almost creates a little mural, and that mural aspect is not an accident, as we'll find out. There's that beautiful green avocado 1970s color and font. And each of these has a little story about the dinosaur in the back, facts about that dinosaur. Kind of reminds me of the famous monsters of legend with their little legend on the back of the card. Triceratops was a formidable enemy. When defending itself, the animal made quick lunges with its head lowered and its treacherous horns pointed at his adversary. This means of defense was necessary for survival in an environment it shared with other huge dinosaurs over 100 million years ago. So now let's look at Tranosaurus. Okay, so here's the box for Tranosaurus. Like all the dinosaurs in this set, it's got beautiful artwork all the way across the front and the sides. Although this one, there's not as much action going on the sides. The other ones seem to have dinos and stuff happening on the sides. This one, not so much. Definitely the action is on the front of the box. The important information is on the front of the box. That's where you see that wonderful old school Tyrannosaurus. And there's the Avocado Tyrannosaurus Rex. And all this information about Tyrannosaurus. So you get a little education there on the back of the box. I can imagine a parent reading the back of this box, like while their kid is playing in the bathtub with a toy, and maybe the parent is sitting there on the toilet next to the bathtub, reading about reading out loud about the dinosaur as the kid plays with it. So let's open this up, because I don't have a third Transforus loose to show you. So I've got to open him up. And inside, I don't know what's going on here. There's plastic in there. Let's see what we got. There's his head. Oh, this is just something to protect the toy. This didn't originally come. The seller put this in there. Yeah, this is just trash. We'll get rid of that later. Okay, so looks like there could be some black mold in there. I don't know. Not sure. Now, what is this stuff on the flaps? I haven't really paid much attention to that, on the inner flaps. To assemble, fit the dinosaur's head over the inner cap. Well, thanks for explaining that. To use, remove the head. Well, thanks for explaining that. When empty, wash thoroughly. This replica of the king of dinosaurs is sure to make any child's playtime more exciting. Handle under adult supervision. Ingredients for external use only. Important container should not be used as a toy until empty and clean. So, same kind of language it has that some of them had on the outside. Okay, so there's that. So here's our first look at this Tranosaurus, and his head is kind of squishy. Yeah, so let's put his head on since we want to see the whole thing here. There it is. There's the Tranosaurus. And interesting that his head is a slightly different color from the body. And I've noticed that online, that's kind of common with Tranosaurus, that his head is a little different color from the body. So I don't think it's just this one. I think that was kind of the way they all were, most of them anyway. There's his little arms. Here's his base with his leaves and vegetation. His tail curled around. Little spikes on his back. There's his big mouth. Rah. So he's pretty cool. I'm partial to the Brontosaurus. I think that so you could have a little. Well, this wouldn't be much of a war. The Brontosaurus would just have to try to get away while the Transforus comes after him. You would have more of a battle with these guys. You were trying to poke that Transforus. Transforus was trying to get a bite out of him, but this ridge would get in the way. This little armored shield that he has, like, yeah, no, you have to get past that, and then you got the horns to deal with. And poor Transforus just has these little arms and all his belly exposed. He has to fight with his mouth. And of course, today this image of Transforus is no longer accurate. Current thinking is that he will walk like that, with his legs pointed down, his tail straight out, and that he was more of a scavenger than a predator. But no one really knows. I mean, I know also if people want to put feathers on dinosaurs today. But then I've seen imprints of dinosaur skin that looks scaly, like you would expect. So which dinosaurs had feathers? They didn't all have feathers. I think a lot of the two-legged Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor type dinos had feathers, but did Tyrannosaurus have feathers? I don't know. The truth is, nobody really knows what a dinosaur looked like. I've seen images online, like what would modern animals look like if archaeologists in the future tried to envision them with skin the way we envision dinosaurs with skin. And so it had a series of modern animals that look like dinosaurs because they just take their skeleton and kind of put a little bit of muscle and skin over it, and they look monstrous, and they don't have their fur or their feathers or anything else. So I wonder how accurate our modern image of dinosaurs is. I mean, we have all this revisionist idea about all the bird-like feathered dinosaurs and different ways they moved. And maybe it's accurate, maybe it isn't. I know 50, 100 years ago, scientists were making educated guesses based on the data they had available, which is what they're doing today. In 100 years from now, maybe scientists will shake their heads and say, oh, those silly people back then that thought dinosaurs look like that. Now we know they look completely different. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know. So when we think of dinosaurs, we're thinking of whatever the reality of the animals might have been. What we're thinking of is an imaginary creature. It's something that maybe the image in our head looks like what really existed. Maybe it doesn't. But there's an element of imagination, even with modern dinosaur artwork and all the education, all the new data, all the information we have. There's still a lot of guesswork, and a lot of assumptions could be wrong. But I'm a sucker for that old paleo artwork. I don't think dinosaurs really look like that. I'm sure the modern image of dinosaurs is closer to what they look like than this. But either one still has an element of imagination and guesswork and fantasy. Because we can't go in a time machine. We don't know for sure. So I really like old-fashioned. I think a lot of dinosaur collectors really like old-fashioned, even 19th century, mid-20th century dinosaur artwork with the upright Tranosaurus dragging his tail and all the outdated ideas about what they looked like and how they lived, what their habitat was like. Because now that all that has been revised, that is like a fantasy world unto itself. That old-fashioned prehistoric world. It's like, I don't know, The Lord of the Rings or Edgar Rice Burroughs or Star Wars or any other fantasy world. Now that has become a fantasy world because it's so revised today that our ideas about dinosaurs, they're so in the prehistoric world I lived in, is so different now that that old world is sort of as much a fantasy. That old idea of what they look like and how they lived is as much a fantasy as literature or movies or anything else. And I really like the old hokey, creaky, goofy world of the dinosaurs. Because there's I don't know. I guess there's nostalgia. There's that, but it's also just has a kind of like a darkness to it, like a threatening kind of it's a scary world. There's something scary about it. There's something scary about that. And you see the volcano erupting back there. There's always a volcano in dinosaur artwork. I remember my favorite dino artwork is the little golden book dinosaur. I wish I had it. Little golden books had a book about dinosaurs, and it has on the cover has a Tranosaurus and a Brontosaurus, and all the artwork is very moody and kind of brooding and dark, and a lot of old dinosaur artwork has that dark kind of brooding, apocalyptic sort of end of the world kind of. There's this lost world feeling about it. Even the Aurora model kits, which had a brighter look to that art, even that still has it doesn't look like a world that really existed. It looks like a fantasy world that's dangerous, where monsters were real, where monsters ruled the world. And I like mixing cave people with dinosaurs, which of course is a completely outdated idea now, but having a caveman, even the nature of just that name, caveman, we don't really think of cave people or a caveman or a cave woman anymore. We don't really think in those terms, but that old Neanderthal image with a boulder, a club, fighting a Tranosaurus, that it's a fantasy world that never existed except in people's imagination. So I'm sure the real prehistoric world is a fascinating place, but I'll never see it. They don't have a time machine. So I don't know. There's something to be said for the modern version, the modern interpretation of the prehistoric world, and the more realistic kind of the idea of making dinosaurs look more like modern animals. That's the thing. A lot of modern ideas about dinosaurs, they look like they could exist in the modern world. They're more naturalistic. And that's neat because it kind of brings them to life and puts them in the context of the natural world. Whereas these things never, look at that. That's not the real world. That could never, nothing you see in those images could exist in the real world. First of all, there's always the volcano in the background. I mean, these are monsters. These aren't animals. These are monsters in a fantasy world of doom. The sky is always overcast and the volcano is always erupting. And I just like that. I like that moody, weird, apocalyptic, prehistoric world. The sun is always, the comet is always coming. That comet is always about to come and wipe everything out. It's a doomed world with all these doomed monsters living in it, eating each other. So I can understand the reality of the modern revisionist idea of what they look like and the different the feathers and the colors and the different stances and the different ideas about what they ate and how they lived and what their world was. I can appreciate all that, and it's all very fascinating. But I'll always have a special place in my heart for that goofy, hokey, campy, old idea of the upright Tranosaurus with the tail dragging, and the giant Brontosaurus, and the volcanoes erupting, and the blood red sky, and all the dinosaurs are eating each other, and there are cave people existing with the dinosaurs, and dinosaurs attacking them, and just that whole Hollywood crazy fantasy world of prehistoric monsters. I like that. Now I wanted to talk about this artwork. Where did this artwork come from? So this is, you see, even there's another volcano erupting. There's always a volcano erupting. So this artwork, I don't know if this was created for Avon or if they took this exact art from another source, but I can tell you what it's based on, what it's inspired by. The art in these things, these boxes, this artwork. There's a lot of old paleo art that looks like this, and there's a reason for that. Let me turn these around. That's better. Yeah, now they're facing each other. They're gonna fight. So these are not fully original designs. This is inspired by something pre-existing. There is a very famous work of art called Age of Reptiles. It's a mural, a giant mural called Age of Reptiles, and it's by Rudolf F. Zallinger. Rudolf F. Zallinger. It was completed in 1947 for the Yale Peabody Museum in New Haven, Connecticut. So this mural is still there today. It's at the Yale Peabody Museum in New Haven, Connecticut. And it's in their great hall that houses a great collection of dinosaur skeletons. And they have a big Brontosaurus skeleton that's very famous and iconic, and a bunch of other dino skeletons. And one wall of that great hall is this gigantic mural. And this mural is world famous. Let me get Triceratops up here. So the mural is world famous. And what does the mural look like? It looks like these boxes. So basically these boxes are rip-offs of that mural. They're not exactly like the mural. It's kind of like the way Azraq Hamway ripped off the Aurora box art for their packages. Well, Avon ripped off this mural for these bubble bath packages. Now, I don't know if Avon commissioned this art for these products, or if there was another rip-off. I mean, there were all kinds of rip-offs of that mural. If there was another painting or a calendar or who knows what, or a poster that was sold or something else that ripped off this mural, and then Avon maybe Avon ripped that off. I don't know, because this artwork is not exactly the same as the mural. It's like 90%, but it's not 100%. This is not the actual mural. It's based on it. It's inspired by it. It's very similar to it, but it's not exactly the same. But this mural is so famous and influential. Rudolf Zallinger won a Pulitzer Prize in 1949 for that mural. And that imagery influenced the way we viewed dinosaurs in popular culture for decades. And all kinds of products, toys, models, book illustrations, advertising, all kinds of stuff was based on that mural. Unofficially, it was inspired by the look of that mural. Pretty much all the dino toys and dino models, the early ones, like 50s into the 60s, owed something to that mural. A lot of the plastic toys, the dinos look like the ones in the mural, and they're posed very similar to the ones in the mural. And so everything I was just talking about, all that old style paleo art that I like, that inaccurate, outdated paleo art that I like, a lot of it comes from this mural. This mural really set the standard for what the prehistoric world was supposed to look like. I mean, there are exceptions, like the Aurora model kit box art does not look like the mural. But that's 1970s. I mean, this is also 70s, but this is 70s, obviously, but by the 70s, the mural was starting to have less of an influence, and we're getting some other ideas about what prehistoric creatures look like. But definitely from like the 40s, 50s through 60s, that mural really created our mid-20th century image of what a dinosaur looked like, what their world looked like, and how they interacted. And a lot of the cliches of what dinosaurs look like comes from that mural. When we think of like a 50s, 60s dinosaur, what it looks like, it probably owes something to that mural. Whatever that image is in your mind, wherever it came from, a movie, a comic book, a toy, it probably, that look owes something to the mural. And if you look at older dinosaur art, like 19th century dinosaur art, it looks different. Like 19th century dinosaurs are more lizard-like. They look more like they're taking modern reptiles and just kind of exaggerating them and blowing them up. And then you have like The Lost World and King Kong and the movies in the early 20th century, and that has a certain look. And then by the mid 20th century, that mural really cements a certain aesthetic for what the prehistoric world looks like. And that stays into effect for a good 30 years. And is still influencing products in the mid 1970s. It's still determining what a dinosaur looked like. I remember having plastic dinosaur toys in the 70s that looked like the creatures in the mural. I mean, that is not just the boxes, the toys themselves look like the mural art, like the Zollinger dinosaurs. And not just the creatures, but the terrain that's part of the toy. The idea of what does a prehistoric tree look like comes from that mural. And I think King Kong also had some influence there too. But the idea that, when you look at those leaves, and they look like prehistoric leaves. You can just tell that's from the prehistoric world. These ancient jungle leaves. And that's from that mural. That look is from the mural. So that mural is very, very influential. It influenced toys, it influenced movies, it influenced books, you name it. If it were not for that mural, I think our idea of what dinosaurs look like would be very different. Because even today, even with Jurassic Park and more recent stuff than that, I think we still kind of have that. If you just imagine a dinosaur, it's not that far removed, unless you're like a student of paleontology. Then you've got a different idea. But if you're just Joe Schmo and you think of a dinosaur, you're still kind of thinking of that Zollinger mural, the Age of Reptiles, that style. The dinosaurs that are in that mural is still imprinted, even today, on our psyche. It's still kind of what we think of when we think of a dinosaur. And especially if you're older. If you're younger, then maybe Jurassic Park, that's probably your point of reference. And even with me, when I think of different, like a point of demarcation, I think of like 19th century lizards, then like King Kong, Willis O'Brien, Lost World, which carries over into like Ray Harryhausen dinosaurs as well. And then there's the mural, and that really is like the mid-20th century dinosaur style. And then that carries all the way over into the 90s, and then we have the Jurassic Park aesthetic, which is the more modern one. And that's all the way to the present. And at some point we'll have a movie or something in the popular culture with feathered, bright-colored dinosaurs that will establish that look, which still isn't really established as the way dinosaurs look in the public's mind. It's not the way they look in the Jurassic Park movies, at least not most of them. But I think all it takes is some big movie or some big TV show or some big thing that really hits on that feathered, bright-colored dino look. And then a generation will grow up thinking dinosaurs look like that. And maybe they did. I don't know. Okay, well, so kind of a different episode. And there's just these three. Tyrannosaurus, Brontosaurus, Triceratops. That's it. 3 of them. 3 in the set. It bugs me that I don't know the year these were made, because I thought I had that, but I don't. My research had a hole in it. Didn't have the year. But it's mid-70s, and they're just really lovely, very, very 1970s dinosaur toys, but also harkening back to the 40s with that mural and all the mid-20th century dino art. It's all kind of in here in these cool toys. And they are toys, even though they're bubble bath. They're soakies, basically, but they're toys. And I have a very emotional connection with the Brontosaurus. They're easy to find on eBay. They're very cheap. You can get any of these for less than $25 each. You might not even have to pay that much. Maybe on a good day, $15 for a boxed one. Loose one, like $5. So they're cheap. So if you're interested in collecting them, you shouldn't have much of a problem doing it. Okay, I think that's it. So next time we'll be back to Megos until we get through all those new Mego monsters and review all of them. Yeah, we still have a few to go. We have a few more to go. And then we'll do a few more non-Mego episodes. And it'll be time after that to close the season. We'll have a few more Mego episodes, and then we'll have like 3 or 4 non-Mego episodes, and then the season finale, which is always, I always build it up, the big season finale, and it's usually something not that big. Yeah, it's kind of a joke, the big season finale, and then it's, just some little thing. And I know what I'm going to do for the last episode. And it'll be something very small scale and kind of intimate and kind of personal. But I'm thinking ahead of what I'm going to do. So that's several weeks away, though. We still got several episodes before then, but the end is near. The end of the season is coming. So emotionally prepare yourself for that. That's it. Okay. How long is this episode? Wow. Longer than I thought. I had a lot to say about these dinosaurs. These three little dinosaurs. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll be back soon with another Mego monster review. I love these dinosaurs. Until next time, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.